And it's really almost so sneaky, for lack of a better term, in the way that they've done this, where so many people thought, the advent of a one world government would come at the point of a gun. Instead, it's coming literally at the point of a fountain pen.
You're quite right. It's a bureaucratic coup d'etat. They've done it in secret, and yet they knew they wouldn't get away with doing it completely in secret. So what they did was they posted the draft text of the treaty on an obscure corner of an obscure UN website, the website of the Framework Convention on Climate Change. And it wasn't headed, "This is the Copenhagen Treaty, this is what's going to happen to you, you need to read this." Oh no. It was headed, "Note by the Secretariat." And in the annexes, buried in the annexes to this note by the Secretariat, was the draft of the treaty. And a diligent colleague of mine, Dr. Willie Soon, at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, found it, sent it to me, and I immediately ensured that it was published worldwide, so that people could know what's about to hit them.
All right, we'll stop right there. We'll come back. We'll start getting into some of the points of the treaty itself. Lord Monckton has seen the treaty, this draft treaty. Of course, in the press, they're just saying it's ministerial meetings. We'll talk more about the Copenhagen Treaty that's coming up. Pearl Harbor Day, December the 7th in Copenhagen, Denmark. There's more around the corner. Stay with us on the Mike Chambers Radio Show. All right, back here on the Mike Chambers Radio program, our guest today, Lord Christopher Monckton. And we're talking about the Copenhagen Climate Change Treaty. That goes, of course, along with the cap and trade bill that Lord Monckton, right now, they've already pushed it through one Senate committee. It's already passed our House of Representatives. They pushed it through one Senate committee with absolutely no opposition present to debate the bill. So we've got 4 more committees to go, and I have a feeling, my gut feeling regarding this is they will get a bill done either sometime before December 7th or right on December 7th. And while Obama is receiving his well-earned Nobel Peace Prize, I might add, while he's receiving that award, they'll instantly pop over to Copenhagen and seal this deal, and that'd be the end of it.
That, I'm sure, is the game plan, but I'm not sure it's going to find the necessary 60 votes in the Senate, because many senators now have begun to realize that there is no, and I mean no, scientific basis for this nonsense anymore. And they are worried that they will be the ones who get the blame for introducing the greatest tax increase in human history and inflicting it on their population, when there is absolutely no reason to do this at all. So I think a number of the blue dog Democrats, as well as very nearly all the Republicans, there'll be 1 or 2 stupid Republicans like Senator Graham and possibly Senator McCain, who will be eccentric and will vote for this because they think it's going to make them popular with this ruling class that is so desperate to get this through. But the vast majority of the Senate, I believe, will not vote for this bill in the end. The only way they got it through the Environment Committee was by overriding the procedures of the House that stipulate that you have to have at least 2 opposition members present during committee hearings. And in the past, Democrats, when there was a Republican majority, have held up legislation by not attending committee meetings so that it couldn't go through. But what has happened here is that Barbara Boxer has simply flagrantly overridden the rules of the Senate and pushed the bill through the committee anyway. And unfortunately, because nothing that is done in Congress can be questioned in any court, that illegality can't be challenged. We had the same thing in the UK with the Maastricht Treaty, where the then left-wing leader of the Conservative Party, John Major, was defeated in Parliament and reintroduced the bill to sign us up to yet another piece of European freedom-destroying legislation the following day, when the rules of Parliament plainly stated that you couldn't reintroduce it until at least the beginning of the following session of Parliament, another year away. But he disregarded that, overrode the rules of the House, and forced it through anyway. And even though that was and is illegal, there's nothing that anyone can do about it. And it's quite clear that we now have people in control on both sides of the Atlantic who simply don't care about democracy and about the procedures that go with democracy, even in the congresses and parliaments where democracy is most supposed to be treasured and honored and respected. Instead, they're overriding these procedures for the sake of forcing upon us something that they know that their people and their representatives don't really want and would certainly hate once it was imposed on them.
Right, and I agree with you there, because I mean, in this country, we're in a situation where we don't even know if the man they claim to be president is actually even a citizen of this country.
Well, I mean, certainly, I find it extraordinary, without in any way presuming to pronounce on whether or not he was born in Kenya, as his grandmother says, or born in Hawaii, as his freshly minted birth certificate says. It's not for me to say which of those two is telling the truth. What I will say is this, that when I looked into this a few months ago to try to find out where he'd been to school, have a look at his school records, where he had lived, have a look at the records there, every single record had been sealed so that I was not allowed to look at it. Now, again, in a democracy, if you are holding the highest democratically elected office in the land, you don't do that. What I did discover when I dug around was that his lawyers, Obama's lawyers, have spent very nearly $1 million in the last year on legal actions to have all the records of his past life either destroyed or sealed where nobody can see them. Now, I don't know whether or not he was born in this country. What I do know is that anyone in Britain who concealed all of his past in this deliberate and very expensive way would not deserve to hold office for a moment longer. If you're a public figure, then your life is a public life, and you cannot and may not conceal it by the use of expensive lawyers costing $1 million. That's not democracy.
Most definitely not. And in this treaty, when what really had perked my interest regarding your presentation was right about that same time, you have Ban Ki-moon and people with the World Bank and the IMF talking about the need for the ability to enforce their policies. And of course, with the economic crisis we have here, this push towards, pushing all the banking global and the like. And I found it very interesting. And within days, your presentation comes along and what's happening becomes oh so crystal clear.
That is correct, because what this treaty says, and I've read the draft, it's a long and rambling and diffuse draft, but I'm used to that because these days, if they want to hide something in a treaty, they make it long. In the old days, a treaty was something a page or two long, simply establishing general principles, and then the details were worked out over the years. Now, when they have these long, complex treaties, they're trying to hide something. In this case, what they're trying to hide is that the third of the three purposes of this new government, the first purpose is government itself, but the second purpose is taxation and redistribution of wealth from richer countries to the new government. Of course, none of this will actually go to the poorer countries, although they've been told it will, so that they will vote for it. But the third purpose is enforcement. It is to say that if the United States decides later on that it doesn't want to continue under this treaty, there is no provision in the treaty for it to get out, but there are provisions in the treaty to make it comply, to make it pay money to this wretched new dictatorial government, and also to levy a tax of 2% on every financial transaction within the United States and other prosperous countries. Now, of course, when you know that in the financial markets, the margins of profit or loss on a transaction are often a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of 1%, a tax of 2% would drive every transaction into loss and shut down the capital markets altogether. And that, too, is in the treaty, as are a number of other provisions by which they can come directly in and attack your economy.
We'll pick up on that when we come back. Get into more of the details of the treaty and the like. Our guest is our Lord Christopher Monckton. It's the Copenhagen Treaty. It's basically the new bubonic plague, folks. Back in a minute. Stay with us.